Hello, everyone. Welcome to CS5346 Advanced Programming Language. So I'll start sharing my screen and let's talk with the very first agenda for this specific class. We will be talking about what is artificial intelligence, what's the difference between artificial intelligence and machine learning, and the types of machine learning algorithm. So some students do get confused between the differences between AI and ML. In a clear way, if I have to explain, AI is the study of how to create intelligent machines which are capable of simulating human thinking and behavior. And the core question AI tries to answer is how can we make machines smart? And AI is a broad field to encompass many techniques, and machine learning is one of the most important subfield of AI. Machine learning, on the other side, it's a subfield of AI, and it is focused on enabling machines to learn through experience without being explicitly programmed for every task. So Google released a very fun tool called Teachable Machine Learning. You can teach to kids, you can teach to anyone who doesn't know about machine learning in general. So what you're supposed to do over here is to upload different classes or different types of images. So here in this example, I have uploaded one class of dog images and the other class of the cat image. So machine learning, what it will try to do is to learn through the experience, as I mentioned. So here in this, the experience is through the images which are being given to the ML model. So for instance, if you have to teach a kid how that the this is red color, this is pink color or blue color, what you will be doing is you will be showing them multiple images which are made up of red color and multiple images which are made up of blue color. In this example, if I have to teach a kid the difference between dogs and cats, I will show multiple images of dogs and multiple images of cats. And then based on that, they will be able to understand. So I will just click on train model, and then it will prepare the model, and it uses some learning over here to distinguish between the two images. Then I will just I will upload a file. So I can upload I will just upload this image and I will try to see what exactly it classified. And if you will see, this is a kind of a dog, and it classified it 97%. It feels that it's a dog, and still there is a little bit chance that it feels it's a cat. So this is one way to distinguish between AI and ML. ML is AI is just to make the machine actually smart. So now let's go back to understand the differences between, there is another buzzword called deep learning, and what is data science. So as I mentioned, AI is the broadest field. It includes any technique which makes machines behave intelligently. Machine learning sits inside AI, and it is mostly data driven. It requires a lot of data to learn, and deep learning is further inside. It uses multi-layered neural network, and it is recently responsible for multiple breakthroughs, which includes image classification and including generative AI and large language model. Data science is a related field, but it's a distinct field. It operates with machine learning, especially in modeling and analysis, because it requires understanding data, visualizing the data, and to just understand the pattern between different data which is being fed in. So there is a proper pipeline. The machine learning actually tries to learn, and this is a six-step process. It is firstly we collect raw data, which is including multiple images, multiple text, or it could be something else. Both the quality as well as the quantity of the data plays an important role in understanding or just affecting the model performance. It's like garbage in and garbage out concept. The second aspect is the preparation of data, where you clean and pre-process the data. You handle any missing values, you remove any outlier, you normalize the feature, and so on. It's like for an image, for the dog image, if it's a noisy image, it could be something which has bad picture, and then the machine learning model would not be able to classify that it's a dog image. The third part is model selection, because there are multiple kinds of machine learning model, and we do not know which particular model we have to choose, which include, it could be classification, it could be regression, it could be clustering. After this, we train the model, very similar to teachable machine learning. We trained it. The model learns by adjusting different parameters to minimize errors on the training data. Then after that, we validate and improve the model. And this is tuning in the hyperparameters, addressing any overfitting and underfitting, which we will learn in the consecutive classes. And finally, it makes predictions on any new and real world data. This is the overall pipeline of machine learning model. Once you have understood this, I wanted to talk about, as I mentioned, model selection. So there are multiple kinds of machine learning models. So we divide machine learning model into three parts, which is supervised, unsupervised, and reinforcement learning. Supervised learning algorithm is it's kind of learning through training data. You have both the input as well as a label associated with it. So the teachable machine learning example that I gave you, it's class. The class was for dog, another class was for cat. So it was able to differentiate because there was labeling associated that this particular image belongs to dog, this particular image belongs to a cat. The second one, which is unsupervised learning, it doesn't have any labels associated. It's like it's your job is to discover any hidden structure, pattern, or grouping within the data. And finally, the reinforcement learning algorithm is kind of an agent which tries to learn in an environment by receiving multiple feedbacks. And the feedback could be in the form of reward or penalty. So let me give you a very bizarre example to understand. So supervised learning is like a student with an answer key. So you know that this is the question and this is the answer associated with it. Unsupervised learning is a student given a pile of documents, and the student is asked to organize them without any instruction. So what you would be doing is to understand the pattern, um, any kind of learning associated with it. And reinforcement learning is that a student who learns by doing or receiving a gold star or correction after each and every attempt. So if I give you a question, you provide an answer and I would provide you feedback saying, okay, this is right, this is wrong. So you basically learn by that reinforcement, okay, I'm understanding and I'm not understanding. So reinforcement learning falls under that category. So let's start with a supervised learning algorithm. As I mentioned, just to give you a heads up or understanding that it does require labels, which is associated with the input parameter, which is given to you. This example, which has been shown on this image, it's an image of handwritten numbers, and there is a label associated. So 5 belongs to 5, 0 belongs to 0, and so on. So here, this is kind of a labeling which is associated. The training process is to learn the relationship between these images and the label which is being given. The next one, the supervised learning algorithm, is divided into two parts, which is regression and classification. So when the output, just to make you understand the difference between the two, regression seeks to understand relationship between features and the labels, and the output is always a continuous numerical value. Linear regression is one example of regression. The example use case of regression includes predicting house prices, forecasting sales, and estimating maybe a patient's age from an X-ray. So it's a kind of a continuous numerical value. Classification, on the other hand, it's a kind when the output is a discrete category where you just classify them into 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 category. So let me give you an example, or maybe think from a perspective of that. If I ask you a question, is predicting whether it will rain tomorrow, it's a regression or a classification? So it's a that whether it will rain tomorrow. So it would be just an output would be yes or no. So it's a classification. Versus if I ask you another question, what about predicting how much it will rain? So in this case, you do not know the exact number, the millimeters of the rainfall. So it's a kind of a continuous value. It could be, it's a continuous numerical value, so it will fall under regression. So that's the clear difference between the two. Now, going back to unsupervised learning, as I mentioned, it doesn't, you have been just given a bunch of data and you have to understand the hidden pattern to associate the values, to group the values, and so on. So here, for instance, in this example, it's a sample of images and which are in different colors. In the end, you will put all of them in different category based on the color. So you identified the color is one of the mechanism that you can distinguish between the different samples which are given. Unsupervised learning algorithm is also of two types, which is clustering and association. Clustering divide the data set into group. K-means is one famous example of clustering algorithm where you initialize random K clusters and you assign each point at different points based on the nearest value. Association, on the other hand, it's identifying relationship or association rules between in the larger data set. An example could be, so for instance, if I say that white bread and brown bread, for in a clustering technique, both white bread and brown bread could be put in a same cluster. However, if I make an association, association would be trying to identify the pattern, which could be bread is to butter. So it's a kind of a relationship that you usually put butter on the bread. So there is a relationship, and versus in the case of clustering, you try to put them in the same category. So bread, even though it is white or brown, you will put it in the same categories. That's the basic difference. Next thing which comes into the next picture is reinforcement learning. But let's try to understand why reinforcement learning was actually needed. So there were certain issues with both supervised and unsupervised learning, and that's why reinforcement learning came at a later stage. Reinforcement learning is majorly inspired from human brain. Our brain also learns through different kinds of incentives. So if you see over here, these are some of the crucial differences to understand the differences between the three. And we will talk about reinforcement learning later, but there were issues, as I mentioned. So in supervised learning, there is a label. In unsupervised, you do not need a label. Similarly, in reinforcement learning, you do not need a label. In the case of objective function, generally for supervised learning, you minimize a fixed loss function, which is the prediction error. Unsupervised learning, you try to aim to capture any data structure, which is pattern, any hidden pattern. Reinforcement learning maximizes, on the other hand, the reward over time. That is the major objective. In terms of sequential decision, only reinforcement learning is designed to handle sequences of decision over time versus supervised and unsupervised learning. They make independent prediction. It's not dependent on time. With respect to long-term planning, reinforcement learning explicitly plans ahead. Each action may have consequences in the immediate future. Versus in supervised and unsupervised, it doesn't matter. Adaptation for reinforcement learning, it adapts strongly to new environments, but supervised and unsupervised learning, they have limited adaptation due to without retraining. You have to retrain them again and again to make it more adaptable to the new environment. Finally, interaction with the environment. Reinforcement learning is the only one which interacts and changes their environment. However, both supervised and unsupervised learning, they learn from static data set. It's a fixed data set. In order to make it learn, you will just make them learn through the new data set. So just to make you a basic understanding of reinforcement learning, it's like teaching a dog that when you throw a ball, they have to bring the ball. So the way they would be bringing the ball, after they bring the ball, you will either pat or you give them cookie or meat or those kind of thing. And the dog would be like, okay, now I learn. So it's kind of giving an incentive to them. So it's a kind of a reward that you're giving. If they do not bring it, you give a penalty. Either you can scold them or you can just tell them, okay, you did not do well, and so on. So the basic reinforcement learning, as I mentioned, is to maximize the total reward and minimize any punishment. And that's how reinforcement learning actually work. Finally, there are some key terms that we would be using for reinforcement learning, which is agent. It's the learner. In the case of the dog example, it's a dog who is the learner or decision maker. There's an environment, which is the overall environment that it feeds in, which is the park. In the case of the state, it's the representation of the current situation. So if the dog is standing initially next to you, that's the initial state. The action is the choice the agent makes from the overall available options. And finally, the reward is feedback from the environment, which is good actions or bad actions. In the case of chessboard also, this could be generalized. The agent is the RL algorithm. The environment is the chessboard. The state is where each piece in the board is, because the RL agent is learning how to play a chessboard. So the entire state would be the current positions of all the pieces. Reward is capturing a piece, and then policy is a kind of a strategy that you have to do in order to make it learn well. Finally, in order to end this particular lecture, this just a quick check. According to you, what do you think reinforcement learning agents or models seek to do? Whether they interpret the state of an environment, or they maximize a given reward, they explore an environment, and whether they exhibit creativity. Just think about it. Finally, I would end this particular lecture by saying that we understood the key concept of AI ML. We also understood the 6 steps of machine learning. We distinguished between the different kinds of machine learning algorithm, and we also learned about reinforcement learning. Thank you, everyone.